Welcome, everybody. Happy to spend your lunchtime with you, and hopefully you guys will pick up some nice tips and tricks on Gmail today. So that is going to be our focus. As Kelsey said, we've kind of been running through the Google applications over the course of the last few months. And Gmail was one of those ones that came up when people were asking questions and wanted some information about it. And it's one that I like to share because email is absolutely the way that, most of the world communicates now. And so it's important to kind of understand how we can maximize it. So my goal with this, as I, called it our top hacks for Gmail, is really to bring in as many little tips and tricks that I know that I use to help me be efficient in my Gmail usage and in my email usage as I can be. So the goal of the session today is to give you guys a lot of those tips that are right there in front of you in Gmail, but sometimes they might be a click that's hidden and you didn't know what that button did, or you didn't know what that little arrow did. And maybe there's a setting or two that we can go in and tweak to make your email life a little bit better. So that's the goal of today. If you have a work account for Google, these tips will all apply to that. If you have a personal Gmail account, all of these tips will apply to that. There may be a slight difference in between a Google for Work account or a Bit Education account than a personal account, but not really. For the most part, they're all the same. Everything works the same. So I'm going to be kind of bopping in and out of different accounts to show you guys what it looks like. So the way I present, if you haven't attended a session with me before, a lot of demo. So I'm going to show you a lot. So that's why the recordings are super helpful. So I'm excited to be here with you all. And as Kelsey said, so my name is Ben. I'm a regional education technology coordinator from Illinois. So I'm from just down south of you all, outside of the Chicagoland area into the cornfields here. And we're actually going to hit 50 today. So, we're a little warm. And I actually think you guys up in Minnesota have almost been warmer than us down here for a little. It's crazy. My buddy who lives in the Twin Cities was playing golf last weekend and I was not. So, yeah, I'm happy to be here. There's my social channels down there. If anybody wants to follow along, see what my life looks like, you're more than welcome to. But as an ed tech person, as a person that works in the technology field, you can imagine that my email is where I live. And I would struggle to kind of pull statistics on how many of these sessions I do, or how many emails I send on a daily basis. It's kind of crazy. So I want to make sure we kind of showcase a lot of really good stuff today. How can we build out our ecosystems to make everything work well? How can we use these tips, these tricks to maximize our efficiency? Because life is all about efficiency and making sure that we can get places quickly and do things effectively, and save time. So that's our goal. So as Kelsey said, please put any questions you have in the chat. I'll pause from time to time for you to unmute, ask questions if you have. We'll definitely save that though for a lot of the end. So if you do have questions, please put them in there. Kelsey's really good at interjecting those in to make the session as helpful as it can possibly be for everybody. So, all right. So first things first, I'm going to just go right in and jump in and look here at Gmail. So I'm actually going to make sure I quit out of a couple of apps. I have Do Not Disturb on, but I don't want anything to pop up on here. So inside Gmail, we have a couple of different things that I want to just point out logistically where stuff exists and how you can kind of manipulate things and how things can look differently based on what you're doing. This account here is actually one that is not one that I use a lot. It's my son's school. I am a de facto tech guy, I guess, kind of for them. It's a private school, so they need all the help they can get. So they gave me an account. So it's not, when you see like I have the last email in here from November of 23, I don't use this account. So that's why we're going to use this account, because you don't need to see all of my personal stuff going on, because there's a lot going on right now. But this gives us a good idea of where things exist and why they exist, and what we do. So just a quick tour, some of the stuff over here, and I do have the slides. So like the first thing is I want to talk about this menu bar of options that comes up inside of your Gmail. And one of those things, the reason for that is you see when you don't have anything selected, there's not really anything to do. But if you do select something and you click a box next to an email, you get a whole host of other options now. And there are a few things here that I want to make sure everybody's aware of how Gmail works. Some of my kind of best questions. One of them is right off the bat, kind of just going from left to right, like we're reading, what do these three boxes do? And what's the difference between archive and delete? Because this is something that comes up a lot when I talk to people, is they don't understand the difference and they don't know the difference and they've never really bothered to look. And there's a tremendous difference between the two. Okay. So when you see this archive, and also if you have an iPhone, or you have even the Gmail app on your phone, you can archive messages. You know, here's my little, it's the same logos you can see at the top there when I select an email, right? So the biggest thing here is, and if you have an iPhone, sorry, and you open it up on the native iPhone app and you just swipe and it looks like you deleted your email, you didn't delete your email. Okay. And if you archive something, so if I click this box and I hit this archive button, it disappears from my inbox, but it does not delete. That email actually stays in your email ecosystem. Okay. And you can go back and find it no matter how long ago you archived it. What it did was it just removed it from your inbox. And so when I say that, to kind of put context behind that, what you have to think of is that your inbox is merely a folder where all of your incoming emails go to. Okay, so that's the first folder that they go to. And from there, you can put them into other folders that Google calls labels, or you can remove it from the inbox and kind of throw it into the big room that is the all mail area. Okay, so your main default view is always going to be your inbox. But if you archive something, it removes it from the inbox, but it does not delete it. And that's very important, especially in a personal Gmail account, because if you start racking up thousands and thousands and thousands of emails and you think that you've been deleting them to free up space, because every Google account only comes with 15 free gigabits of storage space. So if you have, you know, an addiction to, you know, advertising and, you know, email specials and things like that, you get a lot of emails that can create a lot of storage space that gets, you know, taken up, and you might not be able to utilize that for other stuff in your Google Drive or your Google Photos and things like that. So if you, and also people will inadvertently kind of click that button or they'll swipe on their phone and they'll be like, oh no, where did that message go? So that's what I want to point out. So if you do archive something and you need to find it again, over here on the left-hand side, underneath of all of these options here, if you click more, you're going to find the option for all mail. Okay. And that's where if I go into all mail, you'll see those two messages that I archived exist still. So they don't get deleted. They're still there. If you swiped on your phone and you archived it and it's not in your inbox anymore and you can't find it, go to all mail. That's where it's going to be. Okay. So that's an important tip right off the bat. What is the big difference between archive and trash? And when you trash something or you delete it, the difference there is that it is going to be gone after 30 days. So it goes into your trash folder, which is over here on the left-hand side, a couple down from all mail, and that gets deleted and cleared out every 30 days. So if you delete something, if you hit the trash can, 30 days from now, you're never going to find that email again. Okay. So if it's something you're like, I don't want it in my inbox anymore, but I don't necessarily want to delete it, just archive it. If it's something that's like, this is the third time I've gotten this email from this company, like, I'm just going to delete, I don't need it. I'm going to delete it. So kind of my workflow for that is, you know, if it is something that is relevant from a person or something like that, I might archive it. But if it is from like, you know, I don't know, some sort of newsletter that I get, it gets deleted immediately, right? Because it's like, okay, I read it, done, gone, right? So just two important kind of distinctions right off the bat on organizing your Gmail, where these things are between that all mail and the delete button. This keeps it, this is gone after 30 days. So really, really important distinction there. If you work in a school or you have a Google business account for your place of business that you work for, if you have that, those email messages, this is important, those email messages actually never get deleted. Even if you hit the trash can, they could stay there they stay in the system forever. So that's something I warn teachers about, is that even if you think you deleted it, your tech guy can pull that back up. Okay. So that doesn't necessarily work with a personal Gmail account, but just something to keep in mind that if you have a paid Google account or you have a Google Workspace for Education account, those emails, even if you delete them, the tech guy can go back in and get them. So just something to be aware of too, because some people like to maybe think they can, you know, be shady or whatever and delete stuff. It's like, nope, nothing is ever truly deleted in a Workspace account. So a couple of key points there. So those are just the first two. Now the other one here in the middle is report spam. And that's something I think is really important, as well. If you get an email message and you're like, that is not one from somebody that I know, that is a spam, that is a phishing attempt, that is an illegitimate email. So that's somebody that's sending you something, you used to get them back in the day of like, your nephew is stuck, or you're married to the crown prince of Zimbabwe and you didn't even know it or whatever. Send us $500 in gift cards. That's spam. That's phishing. You can report it as such. Okay. And so if it's something where you're like, this is not a good email, you can hit that button right there. And what that does is that's going to flag it. It's not going to allow that sender to send anything to you anymore. And also it's going to flag it on Google's end as spam. So they can update their filters to kind of prevent those types of messages from getting through. So you're actually helping like the whole Google ecosystem out if you get a spam email that's not a good one, by hitting that button right there. So just something to kind of consider. Like if you do that, you're actually helping everybody out by training Google's AI systems on what is an illegitimate email and what is. So
And
that's
Ben,
kind of our
for
first
a
three
second, just to
buttons
say
there.
that if it's something you just don't like, maybe you signed up for it, you don't want to be signed up for it anymore, something you're just not interested anymore. If it's something like that, it's much better for the organizations or things to not push that button because it can do damage to them being able to send things in the future.
Yes. So like you see, I've got a ton of stuff from Edpuzzle here. That doesn't mean it's spam. Edpuzzle is a legitimate organization. I just don't want their emails maybe anymore because I'm not using that account. So in that case, what I'm going to do is go in and I'm going to look down here. It looks like they already deleted my account because I haven't used it in forever. But there's going to be the option to unsubscribe. That's what you should hit in that case because Edpuzzle is legitimate. Make sure that you hit unsubscribe from those emails that you don't want. Don't report it as spam because it's not spam. A spam email is one that's going to be asking you for money or things like that is a illegitimate. Or you've received this invoice from your recent purchase on Amazon and you're like, you don't get Amazon invoices. That's not a thing. That's a spam email. Get rid of it. Okay. So just some stuff to consider there. All right. So some of the other things as we kind of navigate our toolbar up at the top, there's some really fun stuff up here that you can use to help with those tips and tricks for efficiency. Okay. And so actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to have to remember what my email is here. I'm going to actually send myself an email. So I'm going to be talking to myself here because I am a bit of a crazy person apparently. I'm going to send myself an email. Hello. And all right. So that's going to come in just a second. But one of the things as we look across our toolbar up here, when you do have a message checked, you have a couple of different options. So this envelope here is actually what's called mark as read. Okay. And this is one that I actually find to be very helpful when I'm kind of in the throes of things. So one of my things that I can't stand, and actually today I had a very busy first 2 days of this week. And so this morning I came in, I had a ton of unread emails. And I have a pet peeve, and that's, or a tick, I guess, not really a pet peeve. I have a nervous tick of having unread emails. Like it drives me crazy. I cannot have this number, like this number being 40 over here would drive me nuts. Curious, you can drop it in the chat. Who's got the most unread messages in their inbox right now? I'm always curious to see. You put it in the chat how much, what that number is, because I've seen some outlandish numbers come across as I've done these workshops before. But one of the things, so in that vein, I say that because if I click, I get this like habit of like, I see a message, oh, there's an email from Ben. I click on it and then I read it and I'm like, I don't have time to respond to that. That's got over 1,000. That's a lot. I have seen upwards of 40,000 unread emails in an inbox though. And that person, I think, needed to find some sort of help and seek it professionally because that was a lot. 1,000 is a lot, but not as bad as the 40 and 50,000 that, and one person just wouldn't flat out admit it to me. I was like, is it over 50,000? She's like, I'm not going to tell you what the number is. I was like, that's too many. So anyways, so I'm in here. I read the email. I have a couple of things now that I can do with this because I do this a lot. I open up the email. I'm like, oh, I got to respond to Kelsey later. I got to respond to this person later. And then I back out of it. And then I never respond to that person because I forget. It gets buried, right? So a couple of quick tricks. So as I read it, there's two things that I can do. I can hit this unread, mark as unread button. Okay. And then that keeps it, then it acts like I didn't read it. Okay. So it goes back to unread. It's back to bold here, right? So that's one. So that's what that button does here. Now, the other thing, and this is if you take like, there's like two major tips, and this is the one that I hope everybody kind of takes advantage of and acknowledges that it exists and can hopefully help save you a lot of time. This button right here in the middle, the snooze button, is my favorite feature of Gmail. Like it is my number one favorite thing to use Gmail for. It's this little clock right in the middle. And what the clock does is I can take that email and I can snooze it until either their preset times or I can pick a date and time. And what that's going to do is that's going to say, okay, I'm going to snooze this email until, we'll just do it till later today. So today it's 12:18 right now. So we'll just say 12:20 p.m. and hit save. Now watch what happens. As soon as I hit save on this, it takes me back to my inbox. That email is no longer there. So it doesn't look like it's in my inbox. And what's going to happen is in about a minute and a half, when 12:20 hits, that email is going to jump back over into my inbox and be like, hey, remember me? I'm here for you to respond to. So what you're able to do is if you're caught in the moment and you're busy, you can say, nope, I know when I have time to respond to that email. I can respond to that email tonight at 6 o'clock. I can respond to that email tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. And then you can snooze it. It gets it out of your inbox. So you don't think about it, but you also don't lose it in the middle of all of the other clutter that happens in your inbox. Now, the question then becomes, what happens if you do have time to go back and you're like, okay, I do have time now to go back and answer that email? Well, that's over here still. It's just in the snooze area. So underneath your inbox on the left-hand side, you have a snooze area, and I go in there and I see that email and I can go in and I can reply to it. I can, do all that stuff. And you can also see it says it's going to be snoozed until 12:20. So that email is still accessible. You didn't remove it. You didn't, lose access to it. You don't have to wait until that time that you set. But I tell you what, this helps me so much as I and not because I have that little nervous tick of like not having unread emails, but this helps me. I'm like, I don't got time to read this. Like snooze it till later, snooze that till later. Or, oh, that's a long email. I got to wait till, to read that, snooze it till this time. Right. So, it's a very, very helpful tip that I find to be, one of my favorite parts of Gmail. So that is that right there. So, all right. So that's our snooze. Oh, do you see that? There it is, 12:20. It popped right back up. And you can see it says snoozed less than an hour ago. And actually what'll happen is until I engage with this email, it will stay at the top and it will keep that like highlighted snooze thing up because it's like, it could sit till tomorrow. And if I don't do anything with that email, it's going to keep it up there because it's like, hey, you told me to get, this was important. Keep it here, like stay on it, go after it. So it's a very helpful thing. Now, if I do go into it and I interact with it, then that kind of notification goes away. So once I'm in there now, if I back out, you see there's no more snooze icon there because I've gone into it and done it. So you can always re-snooze it. You can snooze it as many times as you want. It's completely up to you, but that is my number kind of one pro tip of helping you keep on task with it. Okay. No pun intended, but total transition, like with that keep on task thing, because that's the next button over that I want to showcase to you guys. And this is something that I don't know is for everybody, but it is for a lot of people. Okay. And it's for me, I go back and forth with using this feature. Okay. I do find it in Gmail to be extremely helpful. And the task, especially with work, the task list is something that everybody can utilize. So if you see over here on my screen, I don't currently have a sidebar, and you might have a sidebar or you might not. If you don't have anything that's floating on the right-hand side here, look down in the bottom right corner and you'll see an arrow. And this says show side panel. If you click that, you get this side panel that pops out. Okay, we're going to talk about how this can be very helpful here in a little bit. But the one that I want to kind of focus on first is this box right here, or this circle with a check mark in it. And this is called a task list. So this task list pops out and it does exactly what it says it does. It allows you to keep a list of tasks. Okay, so this is really cool because this isn't just Gmail. This actually task list floats on any of the Google apps. So I can go to Google Drive and my side panel's there with my task list. And anything that I wrote in Gmail will show up over there. I can even go into a Google Doc. And my side panel will load up here in just a second. Oh, I have to put a button. There it is. And my task list will be there. So it's pretty neat because what you do in a task list is you can add a task. So I can say create presentation. I can give more details. I can even put a date and a time that syncs to my Google Calendar on there, which is pretty cool. But the thing that's really nice about this is that then I can also say, you know what, I'm done. And this is where people get excited because people need instant gratification when they do things and they accomplish stuff. And the instant gratification from this is I'm done with this task. I hit mark as complete and it puts a slash through it and removes it from my list. And you're like, well, what if I want to see that again? You just go down here to your, well, wait till that goes away and you have a completed list down here and you can see it down there. So that's what your task list is. Very helpful. Now, how does this relate to Gmail other than the fact that you can see it in your side panel? Okay. How this relates to Gmail is if I have this message from Ben and I know that it's an action item that I have to take on this. If I click this add to tasks button, what happens is it adds that email over here onto my task list, creates a task, uses whatever the subject line is as the title of the task. But then the big thing for me is that it puts a link back to that email in the task. So when I'm doing this, like if Kelsey sends me an email and she's like, hey, I want to do a presentation on Gmail, or our one that we have coming up in a week or two is going to be on working across the generations. So I'm like, okay, I need to make that presentation. I need to remember that. I need to have some action from it. All I have to do is add that to my task list. And then no matter if I go back to my inbox or wherever I'm at, I'm like, oh yeah, I have that task. What was that about? I didn't take very good notes. Click on this and it takes me right back to the email. And I can read through that thread, I can see it, and I can get the context behind what I have to do for that task. So the task list is really cool in that it's able to both keep you, organized, but also being able to have that go back to those emails, I think is really powerful. So that's one thing as we're looking across kind of our menu bar at the top here. One of those main features that I think is really nice to keep us organized and to keep us on task, if you will. So there's that. That's one that I like to make sure that people are aware of. I'll pause. Does anybody have any questions as we've kind of worked through those first like 6 icons there at all?
I've got it done, but I can't do anything. I see only 5 participants and not me.
Jeff, put your questions in the chat and I'll just address them in there. Okay.
Yep. Kelsey can help you with that. All right. So we've got that. And now what we're going to do is we're going to kind of go back to our inbox now. So I'm going out of that message. We'll kind of go back in, we'll jump in, but there's just a couple of other things that I want to showcase here as we're looking at our inbox. And one of those is, what does your inbox look like? What view do you like? Because everybody's comes in a little bit different standard. Okay. So everybody, and this is also where I'm not here to tell you what your inbox should look like. This is a very personal preference because I have one that works for me. It might not work for you. That is kind of, all up to you there. So one of the things that we can do is we want to go into our settings. Okay. So when you're in your Gmail, you can go up to your settings here and they're going to have some different options just right away here with density, themes, and inbox type. So what does density mean? What density means is that it's all about how many emails you're seeing at once. So if I switch it to comfortable and then I save that setting, it's going to change how this looks over here. So if I go to compact, you see how it goes like, and I get a ton of different emails. So if you want to like spread them out a little bit, I would say go to comfortable. If you want them to be like super tight and you want to see a ton of emails, go compact. I'm more of a comfortable guy, but that's just me. The one down here that is the kind of more important one to make sure everybody kind of locates is the inbox type. Okay. So this is currently set to whatever the default is for this domain. but there are different options. My personal preference, again, this is just how I play, this is how I roll, is unread first. So what that does is that puts all of my unread emails above everything else that I have read. Because again, I kind of operate on that. Like, I don't like to have unread emails. I like to address, I use my email kind of like my task list of like, if it's unread, that means I need to take action on that thing right away. Right. And so that works for me. Now, if you're Pat and you have 1,000 unread emails, that might not work for you because that's going to put a lot of emails up at the top. So a couple of other things you can do. There are also things like called priority inboxes. So what a priority inbox does is it allows you to set up what emails you see and where. Okay. So you can see like things like I have important and unread emails at the top. I have starred emails in the middle. We're going to get into that in a little bit. And then I have the rest of my inbox here. What is an important email? That might be what you're asking. So an important email, this is when we get into a little AI stuff here. So this is, if you want to see my talk on AI, we have a couple of those recordings that you can find on the website. An important email is one that Google essentially thinks came from an actual person. Okay. So Google reads all your emails and they more scan them than read them, but they scan them and they see, oh, that email came from Kelsey. That means that it's important. All of these emails that came from Edpuzzle, those came from like a server or a listserv, like that's not important. So that doesn't go up here. And how do you judge what's an important email and what's not? I'm going to bring my personal email in just real quick so you can see. Anything that has these yellow flags next to it are what Google considers important. So you can see I'm actually in the midst of planning my golf trip for 2025 with my friends, even though that's a long time away. So I've got this intense thread going back and forth with a bunch of guys. They know that that came from Brad, yellow flag. Now this did come from like a listserv that I'm signed up for, a newsletter, but it knows that it flagged it as important because it knows that I click on that every time I get something from Discover Dixon, I click on it and I read it. And so it's like, okay, this must be important to him. So there's no real quite rhyme or reason as to why you might have something get flagged or not get flagged, but just be aware that that's where it comes from. And you can also customize this too. So you can say, I don't really want the important ones. I just want unread. It's up to you. And you would do that by going to customize.
Maybe connected or maybe not connected. Somebody was asking about if they were utilizing, say, in this case, using Google is where they're getting their email, but that they're ultimately using like another service. Like example in our community is people have Boreal. Boreal is using Gmail as the way that people get their email. They just have a boreal.org email address.
Okay.
But it's actually Gmail that's being used. So
right.
That makes sense.
Yep.
This person referenced something called Thunderbird. I don't know what that is, but that maybe that's an example of how people might have another email sent to their Gmail or use a service.
Yeah, I'm not super familiar with Thunderbird. I'd have to Google that real quick and see what that would.
I think maybe it's more of a generic question of if you have another service that is actually fueling into your Gmail.
Oh, right. Yeah. So yeah, a lot of these features would still apply. I think, it'd be more, maybe they're in a different icon or something, but you would still be able to get access to that. I think would be, if I'm reading that kind of correctly.
As long as they have set it up that way, that
right. Yep. You can have them all funneled in. You can filter them in. Yeah. Yep. Should be able to. Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. All right. So the other thing here is when you looked at those different types of inboxes, one of the other things I do want to say is this is a bit more advanced, but you can customize those settings here too. So you can see priority inbox, hit customize, and then you can tell it what you want it to be. So like it's important and unread. I don't want important and unread. I want maybe just unread and starred. So you can see, you can get in the weeds and you can mix this up. I'm not going to spend a terrible amount of time on this because like I said, it is a very personal, I think, choice on how you want your inbox to look. but more I want to make you aware of this is what it can look like. So you can go in, you can adjust these features, you can make your inbox look different than what you see right now. Okay, so those are all just in the settings and different things that you can go into and look at. All right, so I'm going to go back in and I'm going to turn this back to, I'm going to go to unread first because that is what I like. So the other thing here is when we have that, and that's really helpful. There's a couple other settings that I want to make everybody aware of. Okay, so there's just a few there. I mean, there's a ton of different settings inside of Gmail that you can utilize, but there are a few in here that I like to point out to people in this session that I think can make your life a lot easier. So if you click on the settings icon in Gmail and then go to see all settings, you get all of the settings now. So you have access to really manipulate your Gmail world. And this is not something that I'm going to, like, again, go through with a fine-tooth comb. I'm just going to point out a couple that I think are really important. Okay. And so as you look at this, if you scroll down, oh, you don't even have to scroll down. It's like the third or fourth one down from the general area. There's this thing right here that is called undo send. Okay. And what this does is this is default to 5 seconds. I suggest bumping that default up a little bit, maybe to 20 seconds. Because what just happens, and you always have to save your settings. They don't save automatically. So when I'm done with that, I have to scroll all the way down to the bottom and hit save changes. And what undo send does is now if I hit compose and I send a message to myself and I type, something in like information. So below you will see information on the event tomorrow. And then you hit send and you're like, son of a gun, I didn't include the information on the event tomorrow. That's not good. Now I look dumb because I've sent an email without the appropriate information. Check it out down here, message sent, undo. They never got the email. I brought it back. And so I have 20 seconds then to pull that message back and say, I forgot to include that. I forgot to include the attachment. I more often will do this when I'm like hit send and I'm like, I don't think that sounds right. Or did I proofread that? Or sometimes I just hit send too quick. And so changing your undo send, bumping it up to 20 seconds gives you a nice buffer in being able to pull the message back. Now, here's one of those caveats with this though. Okay, if I hit send on this and then I move the page, like I click into this email, do you see that black bar went away? Now I can't undo send. So even though that was within the 20-second time frame that I get to pull it back, if I change page or I click to a new window, that it just goes, my ability to undo it comes back. Okay, so, or it goes away. So I have to be quick in my undo before if I want to pull it back. But that is, I always just kind of suggest to people like bump that up because we've all sent messages and then wanted to recall those messages, right away and include something that we forgot. So just to make sure that, we have a little bit of extra time. My other caution with this is that if you are sitting, so like if Kelsey and I are in a meeting together and we're even in the same room and I'm like, or on a Zoom, it doesn't matter either way. And I'm like, oh, let me send you that. Like I've got that information. I'll send you an email. And if we're in real time and I hit send, it invariably, like it always happens. And they'll be like, oh, I haven't got it yet. I haven't got it yet. I haven't got it yet. And you have to remember, like, there's a 20-second delay. And we have to remember what dial-up internet was like and DSL internet was like when we didn't get instant, messaging right away. So just know that happens all the time, is that you have that, that issue that comes up. So you do have undo send there, which is really, really helpful. Another one in here, what I would suggest or want to just kind of point out, if you scroll down to the bottom, this is where you can add in an email signature. Okay, so I don't have one because again, this account, I don't use this account for anything. But if I brought up my work account, I guess I'll show you that real quick here. Nervous as to how many email messages I have. waiting for me. Not too bad. If I go into my settings here and scroll down, you'll see I have an email signature set up. And so all of my emails, when I compose them, will automatically have this at the bottom. And so we actually have a custom one for our work that has like a graphic in it and then different links. Our awesome marketing team set this all up for us and sent us a template that we were able to use. But this is one, like, I just have this on my personal Gmail even that just says Ben Songroth on it. So then I never have to sign my own emails. But this is where you can kind of compose those, and you can make sure that you make your emails look good if you want. And then the one that I love this feature is the vacation responder. And this is one for work. So if you aren't sure where that exists in Gmail, this is where your vacation responder exists, is in your settings. Scroll down, you can set that. You're going on vacation. People know you're on vacation or you're out of the office. You can set that all up right here at the bottom of this. So just a couple of features there that you're able to use and kind of manipulate. But I think those are just two kind of the main ones there that I wanted to showcase. All right. So we've kind of gone through some of the settings, what we can do with messages and everything like that. I want to get into a couple of tips on composing a message now. Okay, so just a couple of little features when we're composing an email on where you can do things and what you can do with them. All right. And so if I go up and compose a message up in the top left-hand corner of the screen there, okay, I get my normal box here. And also, I guess there's another thing that I'd like to kind of point out is that if you do get in here and you reply to somebody, it always goes to the bottom. Okay. And let me explain why this is. So in Gmail, they call this a conversation view. Okay. So in Gmail, they call it a conversation view. And what they're trying to accommodate with people is that they think they want to be able to help you by putting all of your emails back and forth stacked on top of each other. So that way, when Kelsey and I are having a conversation in a Gmail message, so if I go to one that we had just for the link today, I can say, she sent me this. I look at it like, oh, there's the link to the Zoom. Perfect. Here's my response. And then if I have to reply, I can scroll up and see her message. This tends to bother a lot of people that are used to the Microsoft Office world and the Outlook world, because they like to have their messages not in conversation view. Okay. And you can turn that off. Okay. So if you're not a fan or you want to play with it a little bit, that's actually in a setting here. Let's see. If you scroll all the way down to the bottom, you'll see where it says email threading and conversation view, and you can uncheck that box. And now you'll see how this will look different. So if I go down and I find that, there's my email there. Now, if I reply, it'll still be there, but when they reply to me, it'll become a separate email at the top. Okay. So that is something that I know a lot of people don't love. I guess I've just been used to it now for long enough. I get it. I know how to navigate it, but it can be very confusing. If I look at that current email thread with all of my buddies here, I've got a ton of conversations in between just a couple of people. Like there's one from Brad, there's one from John, there's one from Matt, there's one from Joe, there's one from Eric. It's too much. Also, I need to make sure I go back and read that. So I'm going to mark it as unread. And so now I can go back and remember to read Brad's email later.
And just a note too, that if you, for some reason, adjust anything in the subject line, it will unthread. So if you go up there and you're like, oh, I need to put a date in the top, or I spelled something incorrectly in the subject line, please note that it will unthread.
It will take it apart. It will dethread it. Yes. One of the things here that, you want to maybe, if you're looking at this and you say, I'll go back and use that example between Kelsey and I. So let's do this. So I'm going to open up that email again. And one of the things that I know people also don't like is like, I want to be able to read what she wrote, but when I do that, it kicks my reply down. And now when I'm typing, I cannot see what she wrote. That drives me crazy. I see some head shaking. It's like, yes, this drives me nuts, Ben. Well, let me help solve your problem. Right here next to her name, if you click on that box and then type and then click on pop out reply, it pops the reply out over here. And now you can scroll up and you can read that email above. So you're not stuck in that last email, which in the example of with my buddies, I've got 15 emails in that thread. and I want to go back and reference something from the first one, that's a huge pain to have to try and scroll back and down. So pop out reply. I'll do that again so people can see that. Reply, and then click on the arrow and pop out reply. That kicks it over into this pop-up window. The other thing that's really nice about doing this is if I pop out reply and I say, oh man, I want to go and look at another email so I can pass that information on to Kelsey, or I want to reference a email that we sent a month ago and I need to go back and find it, but I still want to keep the one I'm composing up. Pop it out. And now if I go to my inbox, you'll see that message still is there. And that's still tied to that thread in that reply of the original email I was in. So pop out reply is a invaluable little tip, I think, in making sure that you're able to kind of navigate those conversations better. And that's my number 2, like most underutilized feature. Like it's snooze and pop out reply. So those were the 2 that I absolutely love, you know, to kind of showcase to people to help them in their Gmail usage. So pop out reply is really great. The other thing that I think is really helpful, and this is one that I use it for work. I use it in my personal world too, I guess, but it's kind of in work more. So if I'm sending an email, so maybe I'm sending this one, I'm going to keep using the Kelsey's example here. So I know that I'm going to respond to Kelsey at night, but I don't want to bother her. Like it can wait till tomorrow. But like I have time to answer this right now at 7 o'clock, but I don't want her to even think about looking at her phone and thinking that it's important enough to respond to me. So what I can do is I can type this. And then when I'm done with that, if I don't want it to, or I want it to send at a certain time, this little arrow right here next to the send button gives me a scheduled send option. And so what I can do is hit schedule send, and then I can say, you know what, tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. is a good time for this. Or I can even pick a custom date and time. So much like we were snoozing emails before to come back to us at a certain time, this is going to send emails at a certain time to our people that we're emailing. I know one of the people I work with just gave me a great example of this. She's like, I like to send, like she's got some family who lives on the West Coast. And so she's like, when I wake up on their birthday, I'm sending them a happy birthday message, but I actually schedule it to go at 8 o'clock in the morning because I know they're awake. But I do it at 6 o'clock our time when I'm up in the morning doing coffee, making coffee, whatever. She's like, but if I sent that now, it goes out at 4 a.m. their time. They're not awake. It might get buried in a bunch of other newsletters, you know, that they're getting the first thing of the day. So she's like, I schedule send it. And then it's 10 o'clock our time here in the central time zone, but it comes to them first thing in the morning, 8 a.m. when they're checking their inbox. And so it's pretty cool because I can just say, okay, yep, today, we'll do this tomorrow at 7:44 a.m. schedule send. And now Kelsey does not get that email, even though there is an undo send option here. She's not getting that email until 7:44 a.m. tomorrow. Okay.
And it can also be a nice tool if you're trying to manage some work and you know that something needs something to be added to in the future, but it could go just as it is. I will do that sometimes. I'll craft it and then I'll be like, oh, I still have time to update it, but it's already out of my to-do list. I already have it out there in the world. If it goes, it's good to go. And that, you could go back and change it, which is nice.
You can always go back and change it, cancel the send, because I don't want to send this to Kelsey tomorrow morning at 7:44 a.m. That wouldn't make any sense. The other thing that I use this for too is like when I'm emailing one of my coworkers and I know they're on vacation. And so I schedule the send to go on the first day they come back from vacation. So like that way I know that like, okay, I don't want to bother you when you're on vacation. This can wait till next Monday. And I'm sorry, on Monday morning at 8 o'clock in the morning, you're gonna get 6 emails from me when you're back up from vacation. Maybe I'll schedule send, stagger them a little bit. But like, I know my boss and I know he will answer. And it's not important. So like, I don't want him to even consider answering that email, right? So I schedule send it for him when he gets back. Because I in the moment, it's in my workflow, but I'm not going to disrupt his time off.
We got a question about what time zone does it go out in?
It goes off in your time zone. So like if I pick 7:44, I'm in Central Time, it would go out at 7:44 Central Time. So you would have to make that calculation, yourself if you wanted to send it West Coast, to somebody and make sure it got there at the right time. You would want to put it at 10 a.m. your time. So it got there at 8 a.m. their time. Good question. Yeah. Schedule send.
It
Very
also can be a
cool.
good way to impact somebody else's workflow. So if you're sending projects to somebody and you were like, I want them to work on this tomorrow, that sort of thing, it can be a nice way to do it so they don't get everything today and not have time today to work on it at all.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So that's one of the things. So there's a couple of things with just sending emails, that I think are really important. There's just one other couple of things I want to kind of point out down here as you look across your menu bar down at the bottom. You can, if you do use Google Drive, you can insert Drive files from here as they're essentially like an attachment. And so you can, make sure you can look at that and you can, insert Google Drive files. You can also, and this is one that I think a lot of people don't know exists, and I should have maybe started with this. If you see the A with the underline underneath, this is actually how you can format your emails to change things like the font, the size of the text, bold, italic. Do you want to align it? Like you get a lot of almost word processing like features in here that you can use. So you can make your emails look a little fancy if you want to. The other thing that I like is when you send an email. So this is one thing that I am always like super, aware of. So maybe I'm recommending something on Amazon for somebody. So, we want to send some Crocs to somebody. So I'm going to take this link up here and I'm sending a gift idea, hey, Kelsey, I want some CCHE branded Crocs. Here's my size. Here's the ones I like on Amazon, right? So if I paste this link in, that is just unmanageable and unwieldy looking. Like it looks really bad. It will be live, but it doesn't look good. So this is my tip for this. This is more of a this is my pet peeve when people send really long links and it just looks ugly. Or I send them more than other people. But so I can just put in here, I can put Crocs I want. If you highlight the text, that's the key. Highlight the text, and then you can hit this link button down here, and then you can paste that link in right there. Hit OK. Now you don't have that unwieldy, ugly Amazon link. You have just a nice, clean link that you can click on and get to those Crocs that you really want for your birthday or whatever. So that's again one of those things where it's like it just makes your emails look better. Like it's more efficient, I think, too. Cleans up. You're not sending, that link took up so much space on that email. It's like, no, just shorten it, put it in, highlight the text, put the link in, and it'll look good.
And on that note, sometimes I'm copying and pasting things from old emails or, between different documents that I'm working on. And I see that sometimes it comes up on when I'm sending it to somebody else, like it shows up for me black, but when they get it, it's showing up as blue or that light purple color. 2 questions for that. One,
Okay.
is it best to go and do the button that takes out the formatting? As an alternative to that, can you go and do the colored font and choose the font and go back to automatic and have it change back to what the default was?
Yes and yes. It's kind of up to you. One of the things that I do like to show people, if you're copying and pasting stuff too, like maybe we go to that Crocs, thing we need to send. So it's something you wrote, or it's something that you're like, oh, I want to make sure that, whoever knows, like this is what the Crocs are. So I copy this text and then I paste it in and it looks different than the rest of the text. I personally like remove formatting. That's how I roll. That's kind of how I like to do things. Because you see, this is just a little bit different than this. So when I do that, there's 2 ways you can do it. Well, there's a lot of different ways you can do it, but the way that I like to do it is using keyboard shortcuts to do that. So there is 2 options for this. If you've already pasted it in, like I have here, you can highlight it and you can do Control / and then that takes away the formatting. Okay. If you want to, the other thing is when you go to paste it, you can do Control Shift V, and that will remove the formatting when you paste it in. And so that's the one, Control Shift V, that if you're ever copying and pasting from one to another, that's probably the best way to do it, because then you're going to automatically remove any formatting that will look different from the previous source into the current email that you have. So
Follow up
that's,
to that, Ben, though, just a reminder that you may lose a link that you put in there. And if it's like a bullet, like you had
yep.
something
the
was
bullet goes
organized in
away.
a way that you like, you just wanted to make the font back to similar, it'll take out all the formatting.
Yep. And that's where you would just go in and you could do those things. Like you could go through and you could remove the formatting here, or you could go back in and you could change your colors in there that you wanted it to be like it was originally. So, yep. All right.
I just find that people sometimes don't realize that when you've sent something that's been copy and pasted, that we can sometimes tell that it's been copy and pasted. That's all.
Oh, yeah. I've got an example that I could show you of something that was very much copy and pasted. And it's like, you had AI write that. I can see that you had AI write that because the copy and paste was really bad. And I'm just going to take a screenshot of this so I don't, dox the person who did this. But oh, hang on. Sorry.
Yeah, when I copy and paste from AI, it automatically has a black background.
Uh-huh.
So you have to remove that at least if you're gonna do it
Yep.
from like
So
chat.
here is because I don't want to send it to the person, show the person, but you can see this is actually an email from someone who was thanking us for our involvement in a conference that we did. And one of the things that you can note, if I zoom in here, is that you can see like there's highlighting behind the text in a gray background. That's what happens when you highlight and paste from ChatGPT. And so she didn't format it. If she would have copy and pasted that in, or done a better job of removing formatting upon pasting, nobody would, well, I still would have known because it's a really terrible email, but it would not have been as obvious that she had used AI to write that. So yes. All right. So those are some of those options there. Man, we only have 6 minutes left. How about it? But we've actually covered almost everything that I want to cover. There is just 2 other things that I think are really important for us to cover today, that I want to make sure that you guys are aware of and that you're utilizing these features. So this is something that will help, again, maintain workflow. If you are used to maybe an Outlook environment and you come to a Gmail environment and you're like, where are my folders? How come I don't have any folders? Okay. Well, the reason you don't have any folders is because Gmail doesn't call them folders. Gmail calls them labels. Okay. And so a label, you see over here, it'll have a thing that says labels. I have no labels because, again, I don't use this inbox. I can add labels a lot of different ways. Okay. I can actually just hit this plus sign and create a new label. I can click on the box next to the person who just emailed that to me. And then up here, I now have a label that I can add. I can go into the email and I can label it from here. So there's a lot of different ways that you can label an email. Okay. When you create a label, you are essentially creating a folder. So I can label this, I'll just label it my name. Okay. And I'll hit create new, create. And now you see I have a label over here. Okay. And this is where you might want to be able to come back to the recording and watch this part, because it is like just a bit of a process to enhance your ability to use these labels. Okay. So you've made that label. Now, what happens when I send myself another email message? If I hit send on this, again, it's going to take about 20 seconds for it to get there. When that comes in, that's just going to go here. It's not going to apply itself to my label. And so what that means is I have to go in, I can add it to the label, but I have to do it manually. Okay, there it is. It doesn't have the label on it. I can go in, add it to the Ben label. Now, if I click on the label, you'll see those 2 messages are there. Okay. Here's my tip. If you want to speed up your process for this, you can set up what is called a filter to automatically direct emails into labels. Okay. So these are called filters. So what I'm going to do is inside of that message that I want from Ben, from myself, to filter into the Ben label, I'm going to click on these 3 dots up here. And again, there's a couple of different ways you can do this. This is just like a nice clean way of getting started with it. 3 dots, filter messages like these. Now, what this is going to do is it's going to say you're creating a filter based off messages from my email account. And I can set this up too of like having like just the words. Like if I wanted one that was just Cook County Higher Education, I could actually create a label that was just Cook County Higher Education. Didn't even have to come from anybody. Just if it had those words, it would go into a filter. So you do a lot of different stuff here. I'm just going to stick to only emails that come from one person. Okay. Go down here, click create filter. And then you get these options. So now when a message is exact match to your search, what do you want to do to it? And I would say, apply the label, choose the label Ben, and then hit create filter. Now, inside of your filter, you can do a lot of different stuff. Like you can do things like archive it, which is what I do with some listservs. Like I don't really want to delete those because I might read them later, or I'll say archive it, skip the inbox, and then put a label on it. So then I can go look at them later. Because if I put it in the archive, remember I didn't delete it, but I can put it into a label. I can put it into its own folder. Okay. So there's a lot of different stuff you can do, as you can see here. Now, the biggest tip when you're doing this, when you set up your filters the first time, is to make sure you select also apply filter to 2 matching conversations. You only have to do this once, but what that means is it's going to then look back through your inbox and find all the other messages that that person sent to you and apply the label to them too. So it just helps you clear up your organization. Okay. So now when I hit create filter, when I send myself another message, send, and I go to my inbox, in just a couple of seconds here, you'll see a couple of things. One, you notice now there's this label next to the subject line. So I know what folder it's in or what label it's in. But then also, if you scroll up, here's that new image or the new email. It already has the label attached to it. And if I go into the labels, it's already in there. So you're just streamlining the labeling process when you do that. So the filters are really helpful for that. If setting those up, make sure you hit that match existing conversations and you'll be able to streamline those. I know people that keep a 0 email inbox because they have set up filters for everything. Much like the people that have 500,000 unread email messages, they're on both ends of the spectrum. And I think they're both kind of crazy, but I appreciate their dedication to their cause.
I love that spectrum, Ben.
It is a
We're
big
doing
spectrum.
that 1 o'clock time. So I know some people are going to have
Yes.
to head out. If you are wanting to ask some more questions, you're welcome to hang out longer. And I, again, we'll send you the PowerPoint that we have from Ben, which may have things in it that we didn't get to today.
Yep. And thank you guys for attending. That was actually, I did get like through almost my entire slide deck today. So that was one of the last things. There's like 1 or 2 other little bonus bits in the slides, but there's there.
The question, and it's I'm seeing in the chat is, does the email go into both the inbox and the label?
So yes, as long as you have that marked, one of the things that you can do is you can tell it in the filter to skip the inbox and then it wouldn't. But if you leave that box unchecked, it will always go into your inbox and the label. So like I said, those people that are kind of like wild and like have a 0 balance inbox, they'll hit that button of archive it, skip the inbox, and send it directly to their labels. The other thing too, to note on that, if you do decide to do that, like skip your inbox, you'll see on my label here, it's black, it's bold, and it has this 1 next to it. That means I have an unread message in there. So that's how you would denote like, oh, that's unread. So, that's why I go there for that. So.
Wonderful. If anybody else has any questions they want to unmute and ask, you're welcome to do so. Just remember, it's going to be recorded. If you want it to be anonymous, you should put it in the chat.
So Ben, when you were talking about the your emails, the total, is that this 125 over 39 note? Is it your email? Is that your number?
So my number in this inbox would be right here, 39, 39. Yeah, that's the unread messages and totals there. So like once I get rid of all these Edpuzzle emails because they're just junk, which I can do. I can just check that box. Well, I didn't want to highlight all that stuff, I guess. But
The
I
one
could,
in 25, the references, that's how many you can see on that page.
oh, right. Sorry. Yeah. Over here, like in this side, is how many you could see. Yeah.
So 34 is the total number.
34 is the total number of unread messages. And then if
So
you look
mine's-
down here and everything else, 45 is the total number of emails in this inbox total.
Okay,
So
because
like in my personal
mine's
one.
9,700.
Yeah, yeah, I've got 10,700 in my personal, but they're not unread at least. Like that's the
Oh.
like I keep a lot of emails, but I don't the unread ones are the ones that drive me the most bananas. So but that's a lot. Yeah.
Well, wonderful, you guys. You're welcome to still stay and ask some questions if you want, but also just a reminder that if there's something that needs a much deeper dive, we're happy to do another event on that in the future too. So if there's something like, that was great, but I really want us to focus on this thing, we're happy to do that. Ben is such a good expert and good at doing a deep dive on any of these.
So Ben, can I ask quick, where do you learn this stuff?
I don't know. I just like I get asked that quite a bit actually, is like how do you retain all this stuff? And I really I don't know. I just have this like weird brain that like connects with technology, I guess, you know. So it's like much like anybody else in their profession, my brain just ticks on
No, not how do you retain it, how do you find it?
experience playing with it, keeping up with
And
it
you're an
too.
educator, Ben, like this is what
Yeah,
you
and I'm
do
an
for a
educator,
living,
so I, you know, I have to, I guess, for my job too. So a lot of stuff I see updates from Google blog. So like I follow Google, I get product updates from them, you know, and that helps when I see like the new features and stuff like that. One tip that I can say to like help like keep up with this stuff is anytime your Chrome updates, if you're using the Chrome browser, if you update Chrome, there will be a new pop-up window that'll come up the first time you open it up. And a lot of people just delete it right away or like X out of it. It'll say what's new in this edition. And I tell you what, I pick up a lot of stuff just from like taking 2 minutes to like read through that like new tab that pops up of like what's new in Chrome. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. Like I didn't know that was a thing. And there's actually a whole blog for it. Let's see, Chrome releases. Now this is the boring version of that, but there's a way you can go and look at Google's like blog of like how they've released stuff in Chrome too. So and that it's not just Chrome, like it'll tell you like we updated this in Gmail, we updated this in Google Docs, like so yeah, just kind of
Also, just a reminder for those that maybe haven't seen other events that we've offered on this, that the waffle or the burger, right? That's an option too for people to find things. And then also just a reminder that you can see what account you're logged in by your icon in the letter. That is something that we sometimes find people have issues with their Gmail. So.
Yep. And sign up for our session on 226 too, working across the generations. That's going to be fun.
Can I ask a question? If we go back to the stacked conversations and threading, sometimes with a group conversation or group, I just want to reply to one person and suddenly I'm like, oh, it looks like I'm replying to all. Did I send that to everybody? Oh no.
Yes. No, I know the panic. Yeah. The other panic with that too is like when you forward a message, like what did I forward on
Right.
other people too, right? I was burned by that in my old job. I forwarded a message from from another tech director to my superintendent. And in the previous thread with that other tech director, I was like, I don't think she knows what she wants. She very much, even if she didn't know what she wanted, she thought she always knew what she wanted. And boy, did I get a response from my superintendent when I found out she could scroll back through and see all the conversation that we had previously. That was my learning point there of, yeah, don't make the person mad. So to your point, yes. So it is a bit of a mess when you're doing that. So if I have like this long, here's a good example here. So I'm got this thread between Betty, Tom, and myself. One of the things that when you're looking at this, because like I replied, so he replied to me and Betty. So I'm always kind of looking at this part right here of who's it going to. And then because if I click on here, then I can see I replied to Tom and Betty. And then if I hit reply from this message, that's only going to the person who's first. Okay.
Oh.
If I wanted both of them in there, I have to go right. I have to click on the three dots and do reply to all, and then they're going to come up, right? But you also have to be careful because here, if I scroll down, like I was like, oh yeah, I agree to do that, but I don't know where the studio is. And then Betty replied to just me. But then Tom replied down here to me and Betty, answering the same question. If Betty would have replied all, Tom would have not had to have replied, to me. So yes, it does get confusing. So my just suggestion with that is to always kind of just check to see, who's in that area there as to this. And you can always hit this little drop down arrow, and that will also show you in a more expanded view of who's, on that email thread with you as well. So
We definitely
that's-
know that there are people that get more annoyed if they're part of CC'd emails than
yes.
not. And just a reminder, there's a difference between BCC and CC, the blind
Yes.
copy versus just copying. So
Yep. If you BCC somebody, they don't know who else is on the email with them, and they can't reply all to everybody else too. So that's a big thing. When I send out a mass email and I don't want to bother people with a reply all, I'll BCC copy all of the people, and then if they hit reply all, it would just go to me. So
Oh, that's good. Good
Yep.
to know.
especially important if you're using emails that people don't want to be public, or if you don't want there to all of a sudden be a giant chain of back and forths that are reply alls to people that maybe didn't even know that they were going to get an email.
is a tip that I wish I could teach our bookkeeper at my work, because she does not know how to do that, and we always get somebody that replies all to all 109 people in the ROE.
I think there's sometimes some joy in the chaos that happens,
Yeah.
but
It makes me laugh every time, and I'm like, yep, it's gonna be her. Like it's always the same person. Like you
it
can have to
often
reply
turns
thank
into
you to all
the
110 of us.
unsubscribe me, please. And you're
Yeah.
like, stop replying all.
Yes.
Well, you guys, I want to let Ben go on with the day, but if you have questions that are follow-up ones, please send me an email and I will do my best to see if Ben can address them in a future session, or he might just have a quick one-off response for you. Glad to have you here today. And
Yep.
again, check out those recordings. We have a variety on everything from Google Photos to how to organize your online system of all your digital information out there. So lots of stuff to check out.